what I have on the screen is a very simple application. It's simply a button that is connected to an action which causes a log statement. Now you may say, why bother? The question we're going to address in this episode is, how does this actually work at the UIKit Objective-C level? And I think an understanding of that will help you have a better grasp on the underlying system, and it'll also enable you to deal with the situation where you're placing controls on the screen programmatically and not through the storyboard. Let's get started. The first concept is the notion of touch events. There are several, and there's an enumeration list of them. And the enumeration list is effectively a set of bit masks. Now what that means is that touch events can be or combined to represent several events. In other words, any one of a set of events could be considered an event. The next thing of interest is the inheritance hierarchy. UI button is a view because it's displayed in a rectangle on the screen. It's also a control, and a control can handle events. Control is also a responder. We'll talk about the responder chain at another point. But the main thing is the control. In Objective-C, there is this notion of a selector. And what a selector is effectively a method name. When the application is compiled, there is a global table created of all possible method names. Of course, different types of objects respond to a subset of those method names. There can be a variable which represents a selector, and they are of type capital SEL. And you can create a selector variable with an Objective-C directive @selector. An example would be creating a selector variable for a method called push that takes an argument. Now, internally, a UIControl has a dispatch table. If some event happens, what should it do? Does a table lookup. Things are added to that table with a method called addTargetAction for control events. Notice that's plural because of the bit mask. The target is an object reference, should be a view controller. The action is a selector. In other words, what method? So, what object? What method? And under what circumstance? What's the event or combination of events? Let's go back to Xcode. Okay, this version of the application takes a different approach based on what we just covered. There still is a button in the view controller's view. However, if you take a look at the connection inspector for that button, there is no connection. So in other words, there's no action connected. There is, however, an outlet. So I have a reference to that button. If we take a look in viewcontroller.m, you'll see there is the property. And I have a method called push, which I want to have execute if the button is pushed. However, it's not an action. There is 2 log statements, one for when the button gets pushed, and there's one that does a test to see whether the sender is self.button. Now, in viewDidLoad, I do an add target, and the target is self. In other words, it's this object. It is the view controller. The action is a selector, so I use the directive selector, and the method is pushed with an argument. And the event of interest is UIControl event touch up inside. In other words, I've placed my finger on the button and I've released the button and I've stayed inside the button's view. In the interest of time, I already have this application running in the simulator. Let's go ahead and touch the button. And we get our log message. Button pushed and sender is button. Very simple. It's essentially one line of code of interest. However, I will put the application on the website. Have a great day.